A single mother in need reached out to a stranger for a lift, unaware that he was a wealthy CEO nursing his own emotional wounds. On a tempestuous evening, the wind wailed through the desolate streets, tossing shattered branches across the glistening, rain-soaked pavement. The faint shimmer of streetlights danced, creating haunting reflections in the puddles that gathered on the sidewalks. In the confines of a polished black vehicle, Daniel occupied the rear seat, his eyes locked onto the window as droplets of rain hurriedly cascaded down the glass. The day's meetings had been exhausting, laden with high-stakes discussions and pivotal choices to rescue his business. His shoulders bore the heavy burden of duty, while his thoughts swirled in a chaotic dance of unanswered questions. As the vehicle navigated onto a more tranquil road, the driver abruptly hit the brakes, causing Daniel to lurch forward a bit. "What is it exactly?" he inquired, his tone laced with annoyance. The driver gestured forward. There was someone in the road. Daniel leaned in, his gaze fixed intently on the view beyond the windshield. A woman stood in the center of the street, soaked completely, holding a small child tightly against her chest. She appeared frantic, her gaze filled with a mix of terror and resolve, as she endeavored to protect her child from the unyielding rain. The driver cracked his window open just a bit. "Excuse me, but it's important for you to step aside. This situation is unsafe." "Please," the woman implored, her voice quivering with emotion. "I simply require a lift, just a short distance away. My little one is feeling chilly, and we find ourselves without a place to turn." Daniel watched the scene unfold, his gaze sharpening as he noted the woman's unkempt look and the child's trembling figure. The driver paused for a moment, then slowly shook his head. "Regrettably, we are unable to assist you, as it poses safety concerns." The woman's shoulders drooped, and she cast her gaze downward at her child, her lips trembling slightly. As she pivoted to leave, the back door of the vehicle swung open. "Come on in," Daniel said, his voice steady yet composed. The woman glanced upward, taken aback. "What is happening?" "I said, get in," he reiterated, motioning towards the seat next to him. After a brief pause, she swiftly entered the car, clutching her child close to her. The driver stole a quick look at Daniel through the rearview mirror, his eyebrows arching in silent inquiry, yet he chose to remain quiet as he continued on the road. Within the confines of the vehicle, the woman remained rigid, her garments drenched and adhering to her body. The little one curled up beside her, eyelids fluttering shut, yearning for warmth and solace. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice a soft whisper. Daniel gave a subtle nod, his eyes drifting back to the window. "Where are you going?" "Anywhere that feels secure," she responded. "Currently, I find myself without a place." He cast a fleeting look her way, observing the marks on her arms and the terror reflected in her gaze. "May I ask what your name is?" "Emily," she remarked. "This is my son, Noah." Daniel reached out with his hand. "Daniel." She extended her hand with a hint of hesitation, her grip gentle yet genuine. The vehicle glided through the drenched avenues, the quietude enveloping them punctuated solely by the tempest raging beyond the windows. Daniel observed Emily subtly, taking in the weariness marked on her face and the instinctive way she cradled her child. After a brief pause, he began to speak once more. "Is there any family close by?" She tilted her head in disbelief. "Only we remain." After contemplating the matter, he arrived at a conclusion. "You will accompany me." Emily gazed at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of uncertainty and unease. "Could you clarify what you mean?" "There is a guest house situated on my property. It is secure and it is arid. Feel free to remain there while you sort everything out." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she nodded with deep gratitude. "I'm grateful, and I'm at a loss for words," he responded without the need for further words. "Simply focus on your son." As the vehicle glided into the driveway of Daniel's estate, the gates swung open quietly, unveiling an expansive property enveloped by towering trees. The grand house stood before me, its lights radiating a comforting glow amidst the enveloping darkness of the night. The driver brought the vehicle to a stop close to the guest house, and Daniel emerged, shielding Emily and Noah with an umbrella as they left the car. He guided them in, revealing the cozy yet modest area. He mentioned that the kitchen is filled with food and the bathroom is well equipped with necessities. Feel free to settle in comfortably. Emily surveyed her surroundings, her gaze filled with awe and incredulity. This exceeds all my expectations. Thanks a lot. Daniel presented a subtle smile. Take a moment to recharge. We'll discuss further in the morning. As he prepared to depart, Noah extended his hand and made contact with Daniel's. Thank you, sir. Daniel gazed down at the boy, a brief spark of feeling passing over his features. It was my pleasure, Noah. He emerged into the rain, the door shutting gently behind him. Inside, Emily embraced her son tightly, tears cascading down her cheeks as she murmured, "Perhaps this is the moment when everything begins to change for the better." Outside, Daniel lingered for a moment, the rain drenching his clothes as he gazed into the shadows. There was an undeniable spark between Emily and Noah that awakened something profound inside him, a sensation that had eluded him for quite some time. He inhaled deeply, then made his way back to the main house, his thoughts swirling with the implications of the unforeseen meeting that had just altered the trajectory of his existence. The tempest receded in the hours before dawn, bequeathing a silvery haze that lingered over the estate's grounds. The guesthouse windows shimmered softly in the dawn, and within, warmth gradually enveloped Emily's quivering limbs. She had hardly closed her eyes, her form instinctively wrapping around Noah as he slumbered next to her on the compact sofa. Even with the weariness, a sense of calm had settled within her soul. After what felt like an eternity, she finally found herself unburdened by the anxiety of the unknown that lay ahead. Later that morning, Daniel came back to see how they were doing. He lingered in the doorway of the guest house, taking in the simple yet poignant scene before him. Emily, clad in a borrowed sweater from the housekeeper, was softly spoon-feeding Noah some cereal, her voice barely rising above a whisper as she hummed a lullaby. Her movements exuded a quiet stillness, a grace born not from affluence, but from resilience. Would you think about spending some time here? After a moment of silence, Daniel inquired. Emily spun around, taken aback. I prefer not to intrude. A sense of stability is essential. A secure environment is crucial, and the home requires assistance from someone willing to lend a hand. Tidying up, preparing meals, and handling various daily tasks. I can provide that for you. She gazed at him with a mix of pride and desperation, her uncertainty palpable. Would you really invite a stranger into your home? I've allowed one to enter my vehicle, he remarked with a hint of dryness. The remainder is a modest jump. She offered a subtle smile. Indeed, that is correct. Thanks a lot. I will put in my utmost effort.
Y assure you.
And she certainly did. In the weeks that followed, Emily found her groove. She rose at dawn, assisted the housekeeper in preparing breakfast, arranged the rooms, laundered linens, and swept the floors. Noah adapted swiftly, engaging in quiet play within the garden, frequently observed by Daniel's security team, who had been directed to permit him unrestricted movement. Emily maintained her space from Daniel. She maintained a demeanor of respect, always quiet, ensuring she knocked before entering his office and never overstaying her welcome. Yet Daniel observed all the details, the manner in which she consistently folded napkins to achieve flawless corners. She paused mid-vacuum, her hands delicately gathering Noah's toys with a tenderness that many would overlook. Her gentle words flowed to the houseplants as she tended to them, infusing the air with a sense of comfort and care, as if they, too, sought a touch of encouragement. He realized he was observing her more often than he intended. Once he beheld her poised beneath the morning light streaming through the kitchen windows, eyes shut, simply inhaling the moment. Once more, he caught sight of her moving gracefully in the hallway, cradling Noah, as they swayed to a melody that seemed to exist solely for them. And then arrived the evening that lingered in his memory. The clock approached the stroke of midnight. Daniel paced in his study, restlessly unable to find sleep, as memories gripped his heart on this especially quiet night. He opted for a cup of tea, seeking to break the stillness that enveloped him. Upon stepping into the kitchen, he came to an unexpected halt. Emily was present. The gentle illumination from the stove light bathed the room in a warm embrace. She sat on the floor, her back resting against a cabinet, with her arm wrapped around Noah, who nestled on her lap under a delicate blanket. She dozed off in an upright position, her head resting against the wall, while her free hand gently held a half-folded cloth napkin. Daniel moved silently, lowering himself to adjust the blanket snugly around the child. He lingered for a heartbeat, his hand suspended just above the boy's cheek. Then his gaze turned toward Emily. Her hair cascaded freely, her lips slightly parted in slumber, her expression serene yet weary. The image held a certain reverence, a mother and child enveloped in the warmth of a borrowed space, oblivious to the man kneeling beside them. Daniel leaned down, softly smoothing the edge of the blanket, ensuring it enveloped Noah's exposed feet. His fingers lightly grazed Emily's hand. She stirred, her eyes gently fluttering open, their gazes intertwined. I didn't mean to doze off here," she murmured, hastily propping herself up. "He experienced a troubling dream, and I simply... It's okay?" Daniel murmured gently. He stood tall. The kitchen radiates warmth, a comforting embrace, as Emily offers a faint smile, gently pushing her hair aside. "I'll take him back," Daniel faltered. "Feel free to leave him here for the time being. But Don, forget to take some time for yourself as well." As he prepared to exit, he hesitated at the threshold and glanced over his shoulder. Her gaze remained fixed on him, and in that hushed, shimmering moment between them, an unspoken change occurred, unnamed yet profoundly grasped. The mornings arrived with a gentler touch now. The previously cold, sterile corridors of Daniel's grand estate had gradually begun to resonate with a fresh cadence, characterized by the fragrant aroma of cinnamon wafting through the air, the gentle hum of lullabies drifting from the garden, and the soft clatter of dishes being washed by hand rather than by machine. Emily had woven herself into the fabric of the house, not merely as a visitor or a caretaker, but as something more intimate, something the very walls appeared to embrace. She glided through the hallways with a serene determination, tidying up, rearranging the curtains to invite more sunlight, nurturing herbs by the kitchen window, and crafting humble loaves of bread that infused the air with unspoken memories. A gentle softness enveloped the atmosphere, something Daniel sensed yet couldn't quite grasp at first. It was the gentle embrace of life reawakening in a realm that had long been suspended in stillness. He started to devote more hours to his home life. Initially, it happened by chance. A meeting that was supposed to happen got called off, and a phone call was made from the library rather than the office. At that point, it turned intentional. He stayed at the breakfast table for just a moment longer, strolled past the kitchen unnecessarily, and halted in the hallway to hear Noah's laughter in the garden, while Emily showed him how to press flowers between the pages of an old book. He began to observe nuances he had overlooked for years, the way Emily would hum softly while cooking, the manner in which she styled her hair differently for each task, loose when baking, tight when cleaning, braided while gardening. He noticed how Noah's laughter resonated through the marble halls as if it were meant to be there, and each time Emily laughed genuinely, not out of obligation, Daniel felt a pull in his chest, as if something long hidden had stirred. They started to converse more deeply, not merely about groceries or chores, but delving into discussions about books, classic films, and the dreams of their youth. Emily recounted tales from her adolescence in a quaint town, revealing her past aspiration to be a florist and her fondness for rainy days, which enveloped the world in a comforting, intimate embrace. Daniel paid close attention, truly attentive. He shared with her select insights, carefully curated and protected truths. His disdain for black tie galas, his fondness for the moments just before dawn when the world felt frozen in time, his skepticism about fate, yet a flicker of curiosity about whether some encounters were destined. Yet he remained silent about his history, the true narrative he kept hidden. One afternoon, as Emily carefully tended to the rose bushes behind the house, Daniel observed from the study window. His gaze fell upon Noah, who sat cross-legged nearby, engrossed in coloring a picture in the dirt with a stick. Emily gazed at her son, a smile gracing her lips as she gently tucked a curl behind his forehead. In that moment, Daniel experienced a stirring within him, a sensation akin to yearning. That evening, amidst the warmth of a modest dinner she had prepared, a roast chicken accompanied by rosemary and garlic potatoes, they found themselves in the kitchen, just the two of them, once Noah had drifted off to sleep. "Is everything going smoothly at work?" she inquired nonchalantly as she poured the tea. Daniel gave a slight nod. "Consistent as ever. Figures, discussions, news updates." Emily beamed with joy. "You present it in such an enchanting way." "Certainly isn't." She reclined in her chair, observing him intently. "You know," she said after a moment, "from the outside, you seem like someone who has everything figured out." Daniel arched an eyebrow, pondering the implications of that statement. She paused, carefully selecting her words. "The residence, the vehicles, the business. You possess more than what many can even imagine." He remained silent, biding his time. "Yet," she went on, her voice gentle, "there are moments when you seem more isolated than I have ever experienced, and I've known my share of solitude." Daniel remained utterly still, his gaze unwavering. Emily maintained her focus on him, yet chose not to delve deeper. Her voice conveyed neither blame nor judgment, but rather a sense of inquiry, perhaps tinged with worry. After a lengthy silence, Daniel finally remarked, "Appearances can be misleading." He rose, the cup remaining idle in his grasp. "I need to return some calls," he stated, his tone inscrutable. Emily allowed him to continue. Yet, in the solitude of that evening, as he lingered in his study, gazing into the flickering flames, her words echoed persistently in his thoughts. "Your solitude seems deeper than any I've experienced." For the first time in ages, Daniel found himself questioning whether it was evident to everyone around him, and if perhaps, just perhaps, someone like her could look beyond the facade he had maintained for years. The waning afternoon light streamed gently through the lofty windows of the study, creating elongated shadows that danced across the gleaming wooden floor. A serene stillness enveloped the space, interrupted solely by the sporadic whisper of leaves rustling outside and the rhythmic ticking of an old clock mounted on the wall. Emily devoted much of the morning to meticulously dusting and arranging the room. Daniel's private office, typically restricted, stands open today. She navigated the space with precision, meticulously dusting the shelves and aligning the papers. Noah trailed closely behind, clutching a toy car and murmuring softly to himself. As Emily turned to adjust a framed photograph on the bookshelf, she remained unaware of Noah's hand reaching for the small wooden object resting on the low cabinet. It was a meticulously crafted model of a house, sculpted with care, its roof gently worn, its edges tenderly softened by the passage of time. To Noah, it appeared to be the ideal plaything. "Look, Mommy?" he exclaimed, lifting it high with both hands. Emily pivoted, her heart racing with excitement. "Noah, please set that aside." In that instant, the door to the study creaked open, and Daniel entered the room. He stood still, his gaze fixated on the item cradled in Noah's hands. In a heartbeat, his whole demeanor shifted. His jaw clenched, his voice cut through the air, more piercing than Emily had ever experienced. "Please refrain from touching that." Noah's smile disappeared. His hands trembled, and with a soft gasp, he let the model slip from his grasp. The small child's expression twisted in distress as he dashed into Emily's embrace, weeping. She instinctively enveloped him, drawing him near as she gazed up at Daniel, her eyes filled with astonishment. "He hadn't intended to," she remarked, her voice strained with feeling. "He is merely a young one." Daniel's breath came in fits and starts. He remained motionless for what felt like an eternity, his fists tightly balled, before finally pivoting and exiting the room in silence. That evening, after Noah had wept himself into slumber, Emily lingered uncertainly outside the threshold of Daniel's study. Her hand lingered above the doorknob, caught in a moment of hesitation about whether to knock. Yet, a feeling, whether it was guilt, concern, or the lingering impression of the gaze she'd caught in his eyes, compelled her to move ahead. With a deliberate motion, she eased the door open. At first, Daniel overlooked her presence. He perched on the edge of the leather armchair. The lights faded to a soft glow. In his grasp rested the wooden house, restored to its former completeness. He glided his fingers over its surface, reminiscent of how one might outline a cherished recollection. Emily lingered silently at the threshold, observing. At last, he uttered a few words, his tone deep and gritty. That was the final gift they bestowed upon me. She moved in, her steps almost silent. He continued, speaking of my parents. They were in a great position when I received my college acceptance. Stated it represented something significant. Create something enduring, Daniel, they advised me. His lips formed a tight, straight line. They passed away 2 weeks later. Collision on the road. Intoxicated motorist. Emily felt a sudden tightness in her throat. I was meant to share dinner with them that evening, he remarked, his voice now softer. However, I decided to cancel. I attended a meeting. I believed there would be ample time. He gazed at the model, his eyes shimmering with wonder. There was not. Emily remained silent. Instead, she settled on the floor beside his chair, tucking her legs beneath her. The quietness that lingered between them felt light. It was sincere, revealed. Apologies escaped her lips in a soft whisper. Daniel offered a subtle nod, one that recognized a hurt too profound for expression. After a pause, he stated that he wasn't angry at him. Not quite. I felt a deep fear that something so delicate might shatter once more. Perhaps that reveals a certain vulnerability or simply an unpreparedness on my part. Emily extended her hand and gently placed it on his. It reveals your humanity, she said softly. He glanced in her direction. For the first time since their paths had crossed, she witnessed a man unbound by pride or distance, but rather by the weight of memory, the grip of fear, and an intense, yearning desire to cling to something genuine. In that instant, silence enveloped them both, leaving words unspoken. They simply lingered in the quietude. Two individuals who had experienced loss, who were gradually and quietly discovering the essence of starting anew. The days that came after that serene evening in the study unfolded with a delicate elegance. There were no admissions, no grand proclamations. Yet, the atmosphere surrounding Daniel and Emily had shifted. Their gazes held a moment more than usual. Their quiet moments carried deeper significance. Even Noah appeared to take note. He would take Daniel's hand as they strolled through the garden or snuggle up on the couch between them during movie nights, as if it were a cherished routine they had followed for ages. Daniel felt a smile return to his face. Gentle, unbidden smiles that emerged when Emily's laughter filled the air, or when Noah beamed with pride over a crayon masterpiece depicting their family. He remained silent about what lay ahead. He was uncertain of the way. For the first time in years, he discovered tranquility in the moment. Suddenly, there was a knock at the gate. The afternoon sun bathed the scene in warmth, typical of a Saturday. Silence enveloped the house. In the cozy kitchen, Emily and Noah busied themselves with the delightful task of baking banana bread, while Daniel focused intently on reviewing files in his study. A faint buzz emanated from the intercom. The housekeeper responded, yet her voice wavered. "Excuse me, there is an individual inquiring about Miss Emily." Claiming to be family, Daniel frowned. Did she mention if anyone was coming over? Unfortunately, sir, he remains quite persistent. Daniel approached the security monitor. The screen flickered to unveil a figure at the gate, disheveled and restless, with frantic eyes and a tense jaw. Something felt off about him from the very start. "I will take care of it," Daniel remarked. Yet, when he finally arrived at the front door, the man had vanished. That evening, Emily remained silent. Her hands trembled as she meticulously folded the towels. She startled at the sound of Daniel's voice calling her name. He inquired about her troubles, yet she dismissed it with a smile that lacked authenticity. "It's nothing, merely fatigue." He released it. He ought not to have. The following morning, Daniel awoke at dawn, anticipating the presence of Emily and Noah at the breakfast table. Yet the guest house stood vacant. Their belongings had vanished. Silence enveloped the kitchen. There is no note on the table. The hallway remained silent, devoid of any laughter. A wave of panic washed over me. He hurried back to the main house, summoning the staff, scouring each room. There, on the front steps, hidden beneath a modest flower pot, he discovered the letter. The handwriting was tidy yet rushed. Daniel, I truly appreciate all that you've done. For the protection, the compassion, the optimism you offered me when I felt lost. Yet, my history has resurfaced, and I refuse to allow it to disturb your tranquility. You provided me with a place to belong. I refuse to allow that to turn into a conflict. Kindly refrain from searching for me. Emily. His grip on the paper grew firmer. The words swirled together as anger and dread surged like a tempest within him. He clenched the note in his fist, marched back inside, and insisted on getting answers. At last, it was the housekeeper who broke the silence. I wasn't sure it was my role, sir, but yesterday, I noticed a man outside the guest house. He raised his voice at her. She instructed him to go away. He issued a threat to her. He mentioned he would take the boy. I intended to share that with you, but I believed she was managing it well. Daniel's jaw tightened. Did he really threaten to take Noah? Absolutely. He stated that if the money isn't secured, he would take him away. I will ensure that you will not encounter him again. A shift occurred within Daniel. He walked back and forth, his breathing labored. Retrieve the security footage. Each lens, each perspective. I desire his visage. His voice carried a chill, yet underneath lay a current of panic. Incessant, overwhelming. He had allowed them to leave. He had allowed them to step straight into peril once more. No, he would locate them. He would take them back with him. Not merely out of concern, but because they belonged to him. Even if he hadn't uttered those words yet. Even if he had not allowed himself to accept it. They belonged to him. And no one, no history, no individual, no creature was going to strip them away from him. The rain pounded relentlessly on the quaint town, drenching the weathered tin roofs and transforming the narrow alleyways into flowing streams of mud. The rain fell in a way that softened all edges, creating a hazy world around me. Stripes on the pavement, glimmers in the window, and the contours of recollection. Yet, nothing could diminish the instant Daniel laid eyes on her once more. He devoted countless days to the pursuit, following whispers, analyzing video recordings, tracing financial transactions, and mapping out bus routes. At last, a weary gas station attendant in a quaint, dusty town had murmured, "Indeed, there's a young woman employed at the diner near the old train yard. Visited last week with a child." Now, positioned on the opposite side of the street from the closed-off structure that had previously served as a warehouse, Daniel noticed a brief flash of motion behind the shattered window. Within the confines, a haphazard arrangement of crates created a makeshift refuge. A slender mattress lay upon the floor. Emily sat hunched over a small heater, cocooned in a worn blanket. Noah lay nestled beside her, deep in slumber. Daniel advanced, his drenched shoes creating splashes as they hit the puddles beneath him. Upon turning to face him, her complexion drained of color. She rose suddenly, her form rigid. "Is that you, Daniel?" He remained still. Emily emerged into the open air, gently closing the door behind her, and paused beneath the bare structure of an awning that provided little in the way of protection. The rain hammered against her shoulders, her garments already adhering to her skin. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, avoiding his gaze. "This place isn't meant for you either." Her lip quivered. I was at a loss for where to turn next. "You should have come home," Emily said, shaking her head. "Your role isn't to mend my life, Daniel. You provided us with tranquility. I refused to allow my history to ruin that." He moved nearer, the rain flowing from his hair, trickling down his chin. "Do you really believe that my concern for peace surpasses my feelings for you?" She parted her lips to reply, yet silence enveloped her. "I've experienced loss before, Emily," he said, his voice trembling. "I have lingered by tombstones, cradled fragments of my existence, and witnessed their vanishing. I understand the weight of carrying regret. Her eyes brimmed with emotion. "My intention was solely to keep you safe. I considered the possibility of slipping away unnoticed. You failed to shield me," he interjected, advancing another step. "You broke me into pieces." She averted her gaze, as though the sight of him was too much to endure. "I apologize." In that moment she took off. Her bare feet danced through puddles, her form gliding through the rain like a specter, disappearing into the shadows of the alley behind the warehouse. Daniel acted without a moment's pause. He chased after her. The rain poured down in a ceaseless torrent, obscuring everything, yet he managed to reach her halfway down the street. He took hold of her wrist, gently yet firmly enough to halt her movement, and turned her to meet his gaze. "Emily," he exclaimed, breathless, "cease your haste." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face, her chest rising and falling with each sob. "I'm unsure of the way forward." He enveloped her in his embrace. She hesitated for a moment, then surrendered to him, her hands gripping the fabric of his coat tightly, her face pressed against his chest. The tempest howled fiercely, yet all Daniel could perceive was the ragged, urgent rhythm of her breath and the pounding of her heart echoing against his own. "I've already lost one family," he murmured, his tears blending with the rain cascading down his cheeks. "Please don't let me lose another one." Emily held onto him tightly, her sobs growing more intense, as every barrier she had constructed began to fall apart in the relentless rain. "You're not alone anymore," he murmured gently, "and you will never be again." They remained in that position for what felt like an eternity, drenched to the core, enveloped by the roar of thunder, the gusts of wind, and the weight of reminiscence. Yet in that instant, within that embrace, they ceased to flee. They have been discovered. The sun ascended above the lake, casting a shimmering haze of gold and silver. The water lay glassy and tranquil, mirroring the dawn's first light as if unveiling a hidden secret. The tempest had subsided. Not merely the rain, but all that had shrouded their existence in trepidation and doubt. 2 weeks after Daniel discovered Emily, justice came knocking. With the assistance of a private investigator and a skilled legal team, Daniel assembled all the necessary elements. Footage captured by the estate's cameras, accounts from the housekeeper, and menacing text messages linked to Emily's former partner. The proof was undeniable. In a matter of days, a warrant was issued by the police. Emily's ex-husband was taken into custody without any complications, and for the first time in years, she breathed out, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. True liberation, genuine liberation, arrived not with fanfare, but with a serene sense of relief. Emily and Noah made their way back to the estate. This time, however, they chose a different entrance, bypassing the guest house entirely. Daniel greeted them warmly at the front steps of the main house. Noah dashed toward him without a moment's pause, while Emily trailed behind, her pace measured, her fingers gripping the strap of her bag as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Yet it remained. It simply became more tangible. Daniel renovated the east wing of the house. Newly painted walls, plush rugs, a playroom crafted for Noah, featuring a cozy window seat that gazes out onto the garden. The back patio was now adorned with Emily's favorite flowers. The aroma of cinnamon wafted through the kitchen once more. It had evolved beyond mere safety. It was a place of belonging. One afternoon, several weeks later, Daniel invited Emily to join him for a walk. They wandered along the lakeside, fingers intertwined, with Noah darting ahead, a toy sailboat in hand, tossing stones and laughing as if he had never felt the burden of fear. The path wound gracefully around the water, guiding her to the very place where Daniel had first bared his soul about his parents, where he had once sat in solitude, yearning for something beyond the stillness. Once more, he found himself in that exact spot, but this time he had company. He glanced in her direction. Emily offered a soft smile, her gaze exploring the contours of his face. "Why do I sense that your invitation goes beyond simply enjoying the fresh air?" Daniel hesitated before responding. Instead, he delved into his coat pocket and retrieved a small velvet box. Her breath caught as he opened it, unveiling a simple gold ring adorned with a delicate line of tiny diamonds. simple yet refined, enduring, much like her essence. In this life, I've experienced many things, Emily, he said softly. Residences, strength, affluence. Yet nothing has truly belonged to me until you and Noah emerged from that tempest and stepped into my existence. Silence enveloped her as she pressed her hands to her mouth, tears starting to glisten in her eyes. It's not merely about keeping you safe, he went on. I wish to share a lifetime by your side. I aspire to create something enduring, a legacy that would have made my parents proud. I desire to create a family, not from a sense of duty, but from a heartfelt decision, driven by love. He knelt down on one knee. Emily, he murmured, will you be my wife? Her tears cascaded down. She nodded, a wave of feelings washing over her, her voice heavy with sentiment. I have always felt unworthy of happiness. I used to believe that love was meant for others, not for me. But you, she moved in closer, her fingers quivering as they grazed his face. You instilled in me a sense of worth I hadn't recognized before. He gently slid the ring onto her finger. She chuckled amidst her tears, while he remained standing, drawing her into a kiss as the sun shimmered on the water behind them. Noah, unaware of the weight of the occasion, called out from the shore of the lake. Did Mom agree? Emily drew away, chuckling, and exclaimed, I did. Daniel draped an arm around her shoulders, and together they strolled along the lakeside, heading toward the home that had shed its sense of being too vast, too silent, or too hollow. For it was now brimming with vitality, surrounded by kin, and overflowing with affection. The garden lay still that afternoon, enveloped in the gentle golden embrace of the descending sun. Lanterns danced softly from the branches of trees, their gentle illumination shimmering like starlight caught in a delicate embrace. Lines of wooden chairs were positioned amid vibrant flower beds, their blossoms radiant and fully unfurled, as though they were also present to observe something divine. The wedding was intimate, attended by only a select few who truly mattered. Close friends, a couple of staff members who felt like family, and the minister who had known Daniel long before the burdens of life took hold. The ceremony transcended mere spectacle. It embodied presence, healing, and hope. Emily entered the garden with bare feet, her dress unadorned and airy, resembling the hue of clouds just before the break of day. She had crafted part of it herself, intricate embroidery adorning the sleeves, a small heart stitched within the hem, hidden from view. It was the most stunning sight Daniel had ever witnessed, not due to the lace, the cut, or the price tag, but because she adorned it as if she had finally embraced her true self. Noah stood with a sense of pride in a tiny suit next to Daniel at the front of the aisle. His bow tie was a bit askew, and his shoes bore the dust of earlier play in the yard. However, upon catching sight of his mother, he squared his shoulders and lit up with a radiant smile. The gentle strains of music filled the air, an instrumental rendition of a lullaby that Emily once softly hummed while in the kitchen. The guests rose to their feet. She approached with a deliberate pace, each step bringing her closer to the two individuals who had come to mean everything to her. As she stepped in, Daniel extended his hand toward her, his gaze brimming with unspoken words and emotions he had kept hidden for far too long. She returned the smile, tears cascading down her cheeks, and softly whispered, "Hi." "Greetings," he responded, struggling to maintain his composure. The vows deviated from convention. They emerged from sleepless nights, conversations on the porch, exchanging fragments of fractured histories, envisioning seamless tomorrows. "I vow to be the refuge you always needed," Daniel said, his voice quivering, "to stand by your side when the tempests arise, to cherish each simple morning, to love you, not out of obligation, but because it's beyond my control." Emily inhaled deeply, her voice resonating with clarity. "I vow to stand firm, to confront challenges alongside you, never in solitude, to hold on to hope even in difficult times. You restored my voice, my dignity, my joy." Next, it was time for Noah's segment. He perched on a small stool, gripping a card he had penned himself, and read with a sense of accomplishment. "Mom used to cry in the dark, but now she laughs in the sunshine. Mr. Daniel brings her joy, and in return, she bakes him banana bread. Thus, I believe that is what love is. I'm thrilled that we are working together as a team now. The guests laughed softly, their eyes glistening with tears. Daniel brushed away the tears from his eyes. Emily leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to Noah's forehead. As they were declared husband and wife, the atmosphere was devoid of loud cheers. Instead, there were gentle claps, teary smiles, and an undeniable sense that something profoundly beautiful had just taken place. As dusk approached and the sun dipped gently beyond the horizon, the trio gathered around a rustic wooden table, embraced by the vastness of the evening sky. Plates brimming with roasted vegetables, warm bread, and the sound of laughter flowed effortlessly among them. Candles danced softly, while flowers inhaled the cool night breeze. Noah leaned against Emily, the weight of sleep pulling gently at his eyelids. Daniel extended his arm over the table, gently grasping her hand in his. They lingered in that moment, observing the sky transform, soft purples blending with gentle oranges, a golden streak extending infinitely toward the horizon. Silence enveloped them, a language of its own. They had experienced fractures in various forms, adrift in diverse tempests, yet they discovered one another on a rainy evening, through a single anxious inquiry and a series of compassionate gestures. Though they weren't flawless, their unity meant the world to them. As the sun dipped below the horizon at their serene garden wedding, 3 hearts pulsed in harmony under the soft glow of lantern light, reminding us that love often comes quietly, without the need for grand gestures. At times, it manifests as an unfamiliar face amidst a tempest, a simple gesture of goodwill, or a vow whispered under the heavy burden of recollection. Emily, Daniel, and Noah revealed that family is not about being flawless, but about being there for one another. Healing can indeed occur, and often, those we are destined to meet appear just when we have lost faith that anyone ever would. If this narrative resonated with you, evoked the essence of kindness, and rekindled your faith in new beginnings, we invite you to join us at Soul-Stirring Stories. We present authentic, heartfelt, and uplifting stories that serve as a reminder that, regardless of how bleak the circumstances, love ultimately prevails. Thank you for tuning in, and keep in mind some narratives do not conclude. They commence precisely at the point where the tears cascade.